All right. Well, good Saturday morning, everyone. First Alert Meteorologist Eric Burke alongside meteorologist Jeff Desnoyers. This is a Weather Extra. A lot of you probably on our stream earlier this morning. That started about 1:30. We were tracking those storms in Mississippi that eventually made their way northeastward. We did have one tornado warning this morning, and that was for a small portion of Franklin County, including you in the Vina and Hodges area. And that warning, that was prompted, the Weather Service put it out. The rotation actually stayed in Mississippi. What we were tracking more was the concern of a potential tornado developing, a radar indicated, of course, and then also large hail and damaging wind. The only confirmed storm reports we have from this morning's round of storm, we have 1-inch diameter hail reported in those areas that were in the tornado warning. A couple of you on our Facebook stream earlier this morning reporting that your power was flickering or out briefly. It's going to be a long day of storms. Just to reiterate, what we had this morning, that was not the main event. That is kind of just the start of what could be a very long day of tracking severe weather across North Alabama and Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, whatever we've had with very heavy rainfall this morning. We have a lot of flash flood warnings happening right now. A big chunk of areas east of I-65. We'll talk all about that coming up. But whatever happened this morning, if you don't think it played out the way you thought it was going to, you thought it was going to be stronger storms, turn your attention now to what happens this afternoon and evening, because it all changes. And the dynamics and setup are there to not just have damaging winds and large hail and heavy rain, but the potential to have very strong tornadoes this afternoon and evening, and you want to make sure you have a way to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, so start preparing now. Some of you still dealing with torrential rainfall, and you can hear it on the roof of our studio even. A lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. These were noisy storms this morning, but just because the storms are noisy doesn't necessarily make them severe. Flash flooding, also a concern. We've got a couple flash flood warnings ongoing through Coleman, parts of Morgan, Marshall, sliver of Madison County, I think even parts of Jackson, as well as DeKalb County. And the rain threat, not to be overlooked today. I know it's kind of low on the list when we're talking potential long track, severe, strong tornadoes and large hail, damaging wind gusts. But flash flooding, that is the leading cause of fatalities nationwide every single year, is flash flooding too. So we've got a lot to cover. Glad you're with us on this Saturday morning. This is round one pushing out of the area. We've got tornado watches that go all the way up to the state line. That goes through 1 p.m. That's in Mississippi right now, all the way down into Louisiana. A busy day of weather across the South.
Yeah, we actually had a tornado watch this morning. For those of you that were following us in the stream, it was supposed to be till 10 a.m. They cut it back before 7, but we've already had one tornado watch issued. And remember the difference between a watch and a warning. When that tornado watch came out, so many people came to our streaming and they thought a tornado was on the ground. Watch just means that the conditions are favorable. Warning means that there's something happening right now. You need to take shelter. And I anticipate another watch to be issued this afternoon and evening. We've already had one. We'll probably have 2 in the same day, unique, and probably have all the counties included the second time around, whereas we had a few counties that were left out with the first one.
Yeah, and again, just the start of a long day. This round one, this was the round that we had the most questions about regarding, is it going to happen? Will that cap or lid in the atmosphere, will that actually hold? Will that keep the storms from becoming too severe? We had a lot of moisture. That's where the heavy rainfall came from. But we saw strong enough storms producing those winds and a lot of hail reports across the area too. And there's still a lot of thunder and lightning across the Tennessee Valley here as round one continues to track off to the north and east. So this is what's currently going on right now. Jackson County, DeKalb County, parts of Marshall, Madison County, all seeing that heavy rainfall tracking off to the north and east. And one of the good things is the heavy rain is at least moving. It's not just stationary, parked over one area. If you look off to our west, though, this is where that tornado watch exists, and we have an ongoing tornado warning now. This is going to be south and west of Henderson, Tennessee. Numerous severe thunderstorm warnings, not necessarily including that Memphis metro area, but look how electric these storms are. And there's going to be a lot of lightning with these storms. Usually it's a good sign that shows intensification, and that's what we've got. You pull back the view and you just see this swath of severe thunderstorm warnings all the way from Monroe, Louisiana, all the way along the Mississippi River. And this is all going to continue to develop here over the next several hours, leading up until about lunchtime. And I think the noon hour, Jeff, is probably going to be maybe the earliest onset, if not even 11 a.m. of that second round of storms developing for us, starting likely in parts of northwest Alabama and continuing eastward.
Yeah, and the areas that have actually dried out before everybody else, obviously you see the rain falling in eastern zones right now for our viewing area, but areas west of I-65, you get a little break in the action right now, right? You'll be the first to get into the next round as we go into the afternoon hours. And that line will progressively move west to east. And the biggest concern obviously gets all the attention is the potential for some long track tornadoes, and that makes sense. Obviously, that's the one thing that can cause a lot of damage. But there are so many other elements with this where we could get not just damaging winds, but devastating winds as we go into the afternoon. Not thunderstorm, tornado winds, but just the winds itself, gusting up to 40, 50, but then you get a thunderstorm that enhances it. You could easily have some gust up to 70 this afternoon, heavy rainfall. And these aren't your EF0, EF1 spin-up tornadoes that are embedded in a squall line that we track and that are so difficult to see on the radar that we had to cover like on February 15th when Eric and I worked that night. These will be more like supercells that are long tracked and usually can give you a big time heads up if it's headed to Georgetown. The problem is, it's usually incredibly strong and will cause widespread damage.
Yeah, power outages looking more and more likely just based on the setup, some of the ingredients for severe weather that we have in place. And don't forget, we've got those gusty gradient winds too. Right now, if you step outside, you've got winds maybe gusting 30 miles per hour. So the area we'll be watching for development is likely going to be right in here. And there's a couple things working here, maybe all the way, I guess you could include Tuscaloosa potentially, these storms, in that area that will start to, I'm not a very good telestrator. This is why I do.
You're doing great. That's almost a perfect circle right there.
We've got that strong south wind just feeding in that Gulf moisture. That continues to add, plus the upper level winds kind of moving in this fashion here. Those just kind of a classic March setup for severe storms here in the Tennessee Valley and across Alabama. This is going to be an impactful day. A lot of chatter online you've probably seen, and a lot of you have seen the worst of our weather over the years, and you have anxiety about days like today, and I think that's justifiably so, that you do get anxious on a day like today. We're just trying to prepare you, let you know what we're thinking regarding that threat for severe storms later today. So Jeff's actually going to walk you through some of that hour-by-hour forecast and just show you what is a potential scenario that could unfold later today.
Yeah, so take a snapshot of the radar that you see there, right? Eric just zoomed in on it. You got some thunder, you got some lightning up towards Hazel Green, New Market, Huntsville. We can hear the rainfall here. It's pretty heavy. I'm going to change this over to the high top one really quick, and then you can see it a little bit better. Storm coverage continues out towards Fort Payne and Scottsboro. That's also where we have some flash flooding. I'm going to go ahead and take you to the hour by hour, or what we call the future radar. So you can kind of see the way this all plays out. So I have a snapshot at 8 o'clock, and that right there pretty much looks like what the radar looks like right now. And that is a great segue. When you look at a forecast model, is it actually depicting what's happening at that very moment? Because if it's not, it's all off right from the start, right? But it's doing a very good job of depicting where those storms are. Then you start to see this all lift off to the north. And by the time we get to about 10, 11 o'clock, most of the area is starting to dry out, but look what happens around 1 o'clock to 2:30. There's another very narrow line of showers and thunderstorms, and these look maybe very narrow and not very impactful, but they could definitely pack a punch. And that will be something that we'll be watching as we go into the afternoon. And that's not the last of it. There's another whole line that still has to move through. So about 5, 6 o'clock, we get into the evening hours. Look at areas west. That's a very distinct line of showers and thunderstorms, likely producing severe weather up and down from north to south. As we go into 7:30, 8:30, we get towards I-65, and you're still tracking the potential for severe weather, and areas west may be starting to clear out. Areas right along the Athens to Decatur and down towards Coleman, back to Moulton, dealing with severe weather during the evening hours. And then that will shift off to the east, and that's when we start to get into areas in Madison County, into Jackson, DeKalb County, Marshall County, and that goes until 11 p.m. The line will eventually clear the Georgia state line sometime around midnight to 1 a.m. and improving conditions should come by morning. And keep in mind, we've talked about at length the potential for tornadoes and damaging winds and large hail. But the concern is also going to be some very heavy rainfall. We already have flash flooding happening in that light green shaded area. Some areas have picked up as much as 4 inches of rain so far this morning. And with more rain coming this afternoon, look for the potential for more in the way of flash flooding for all locations, in addition to the severe weather that we're predicting as well.
Yeah, and just talking about, this is in all forms of severe weather type day. Jeff pointing out the damaging straight line wind, strong winds here this morning, heavy rainfall leading to the flooding threat, ongoing flood watch, flash flood warnings ongoing too, potential for large hail, and some of the wording on the warnings coming out early this morning, mainly for you in Franklin County. That was your second large hail event in 48 hours. You had a pretty decent hailstorm come through on Thursday with that severe storm, and large hail, the wording was up to 1 3/4 inch diameter, and then we saw 1.5 inch diameter in the wording. So this is ping pong ball size hail, and that was just with the morning round. It's probably going to be the easiest round we've got through, and we'll continue to forecast a second or third round coming in later today. Jeff was just showing you that hour by hour forecast. And yeah, a lot of spin, a lot of instability, shear in the atmosphere, leading to those potential long track tornadoes, especially if we get those supercells. And those will develop kind of along that warm conveyor belt, if you will, all that warm air coming up from the south. That's where they'll start to spin up, and that's going to develop in that earlier afternoon, late morning, early afternoon round two.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, no matter how you feel like the morning storms played out, there was never going to be the stronger line of storms. It was always going to be in the afternoon and evening. So, natural instinct is probably to put the guard down and say, well, the storms this morning didn't really play out nearly as strong. But it's not the storms right now that's happening, even though they're very loud and we can hear them, and they're producing heavy rainfall and dangerous winds earlier today with some gusty winds and large hail. Right now, this is not the main line, and that's what we're going to be concerned about when we go into the afternoon and evening. How bad does it get is really the question. We know there's going to be severe storms. It's just how many will there be?
And this is the NAM model, correct?
That is. I did the NAM, yeah.
So this is the North American model here, and I think what this model is trying to indicate would be kind of supercells, more or less, starting to develop here and then just tracking to the north and east. These storms, remember from my awful telestration earlier, that's that area they'll be developing, moving into that favorable environment. Temperatures in the mid-70s here, dew points in the 60s. That's all it takes this time of year. And this is the best resolution that this is indicating is I don't think we'll have so much of a line of storms, but more individual supercells starting to pop up. And that's where that stronger tornado threat and the large hail, the damaging wind gusts will start to really ramp up, is with that round. And we're promising you team coverage. Jeff was here before midnight. I came in at midnight. We were tracking those storms for you. Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis, Meteorologist Chelsea Aaron. We've got a fully staffed newsroom today. This is total coverage, multiple streams online, cutting into programming as needed. One of those days, just stay weather aware. Not the best day to just kind of be out and about doing your normal Saturday routine, try and get some errands done. By all means, go ahead and run your errands, but just keep an eye on that 48 weather app and know what's going on. Have the NOAA weather radio if you happen to lose power, something we stress. We've got numerous radio partners across North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. AM, FM radio, battery operated, is a great thing to have in your safe space, along with that NOAA weather radio.
That's some crazy rainfall hitting the roof. You hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was actually just a crackle of thunder there, but that sounds like the big drops, that forest Gump rain.
Yeah.
Big old fat rain is I think what we have moving through right now. But nothing severe, and we're not anticipating any significant severe weather threat here for the near term. Yes, we've got a lot of thunder and lightning. We've probably got some 30, 40 mile per hour winds embedded in there, maybe even some pea-sized hail coming out of this. But just right now, and I don't think this rain is going to have any impact. Our atmosphere, when we get that break in activity here, probably in the next hour and a half, if we even see some sunshine too, we might even see high temperatures warm up into the upper 70s, if not even near low 80s, with the high dew points and that south wind, just really making things more and more unstable into the afternoon for that main event round of storms coming late morning, afternoon.
Yeah, Christopher just asked the very question that you answered. Does the rain not help how bad it gets? And this is a scenario where whatever rain has fallen this morning probably won't help us out. It's still going to get stormy this afternoon and evening.
And we even saw that here this morning after our first severe thunderstorm warnings were moving out of Franklin County, moving into Lawrence, Limestone. We had one for Coleman County and Morgan County too. Those were the main severe thunderstorm warnings this morning. But a lot of rainfall moved through that area behind us off to our west in Mississippi. And right behind that, there was another supercell storm that prompted a tornado warning by the National Weather Service in Memphis that came up, regenerated, strengthened right in that same area that had the rain cool there. So I don't think this is really going to make a dent in anything as far as lowering our chances of that afternoon around not playing out. Now, there is a scenario, and we've seen this before, Jeff, where we essentially get cut off. Say the storms in central Alabama, all the way down in Birmingham. They absorb all that energy, all that direct moisture, the inflow going into those storms, and we get cut off. Now, that would be best case scenario for us. Can't say the same for our neighbors to the south in Birmingham that would more or less be sacrificing themselves while we get the rain event and they get the numerous severe event. But that is something that continues to remain a possibility, but I don't know if that's actually going to pan out later today. I think we see those storms firing up, and I think it leads to a very busy afternoon here in the 48 Weather Center.
Yeah, well, like well, that's a tough one to say. Ryan Wright just said North Alabama going to get cut off by heavy rain. Just watch. I would love to watch that. That's exactly what we want to have happen because we don't want to have widespread severe weather. We don't want to have tornadoes, and we certainly don't want to have any kind of damage. So if we could get choked off and just have rainfall, that would be best case scenario. Though that rainfall is going to be very heavy at times. We've already seen what heavy rain can do with flash flooding happening across the area. We certainly would want to get choked off and not have any kind of severe weather and tornadoes. That would be the best case scenario. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, best case scenario for us. We don't root for storms here by any means. That's not what we want. You know, everyone in our area, we care about you guys. We want everyone to be safe. We want your property to be safe too. And not rooting for storms today, but just kind of the ingredients falling in place that this could be a pretty busy day. And we've been talking a little bit about the Storm Prediction Center outlook here. I'll let you find that, Jeff. The Storm Prediction Center outlook, we've got a pretty rare 5 out of 5 high risk, and that is substantial. That is the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. These are some of the smartest meteorologists in the entire weather enterprise putting out these forecasts, and there has been a little bit of a northward shift with that high risk, that area in pink or purple. However, it's going to show up on your phone, but now it does include parts of Franklin, Colbert, Lawrence, Morgan, and Coleman County, maybe even up to parts of Marshall County too. So that is a new redrawn SPC outlook map here, moving that high risk a little farther north. That's probably going to be dependent on those supercells forming. I think that's what they're banking on. But if you look at some of the composite indices, to throw out some big words here this morning, like the STP or significant tornado parameter, any number over 3 or 4 is substantial, and some of the models are putting out 5 to even up to 10 as far as that STP number goes.
Yeah, and if you're in the red and you're in the moderate and you're not in the pink or purple color that's high, please understand, moderate normally is like through the roof. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where you would be very concerned with an enhanced area, let alone a high or moderate area, let alone a high area, and it just goes to show you the magnitude that the SPC is predicting these storms will be this afternoon and evening, because you don't usually have a high risk like we have today.
Even sometimes just an enhanced risk, a 3 out of 5, which is a good portion of our surrounding areas up into Tennessee, off into Mississippi, parts of Georgia. That's a substantial weather event most times. At least going to get some hail reports out of that. You're going to get some damaging wind, and often EF2 or stronger tornadoes can happen in that enhanced risk day. And we've got moderate and high risk for our area specifically. A good portion of central Alabama, including Birmingham, of course, Tuscaloosa, Columbus, Mississippi, they are in that high risk. And we keep saying this is going to be an impactful day of weather for many folks across the southern U.S.
Yeah, I'm going to put the radar back up. Some of you letting me know that getting some reports of some hail with some of these thunderstorms, and that makes sense. So we've had multiple reports of hail this morning, and right now heavy rainfall with the radar showing numerous lightning strikes, but not so much wind right now, but probably just some small to medium-sized hail falling with some of these thunderstorms out there right now. A lot of people asking about the timeline of the second storms. I'll put that up one more time.
I was going to say, go through the hour by hour. That's probably the biggest question people have today. We could even slow it down even more so for you, just so everyone can kind of focus on your town, know where you are on a map too. Geography is very important. Know what county you live in, and know the roads that surround where you live. That's important too, because oftentimes when we are tracking these storms and saying seek shelter in, we'll mention your community, but we also often mention some of the roads and highways around you, and just use that as kind of a helpful landmark to know, hey, that's not too far down the road. That's a few miles west of my house. I need to start seeking shelter myself.
Right. So a lot of people asking for the second round time frame. I really think that this 11 right here is a bit overdone, but by 1 o'clock, areas west are getting into that narrow, thin line. This could be a line of very strong to severe storms at this point, and this would be the leading edge of the first or wave in the afternoon, so to speak. This would pack more of a punch than what we had this morning. That line will make its way to I-65 between 2 and 3 o'clock, making it to Huntsville shortly after that. And that line initially looks like it fizzles out a bit before Jackson, DeKalb County. You think, okay, we're done. Well, but there's another one. And here comes the next line. And that comes in about 7, 8 o'clock for areas west, and will continue to impact areas west of I-65 between 9 and 10 o'clock, makes its way to I-65 between almost towards 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. through the Huntsville area, and then eventually clears areas east by midnight, and then clears into Georgia by 1 or 2 in the morning. So we've tried to emphasize that this is a long duration event. Whatever was going to happen this morning was likely just going to be the beginning. There's more to come this afternoon and evening. And it's a 12-round battle, boxing fight. That's what this is.
At least we are seeing these storms moving. Heavy rain continues to be a threat, tracking off to the northeast. I just noticed that my microphone was off this entire time. So apologize to you folks. It's been a long morning for us already. We're already 9 hours into coverage, essentially. So thank you. Appreciate you bearing with us. I'm sure you could hear me through Jeff's mic, just not as clearly as you probably hear me right now. So, we are expecting a second round, maybe even a third round of storms as that final line, that final push comes in. There's a chance even into early Sunday. A severe weather threat will be wrapping up, but we could see some additional rainfall potentially into early Sunday morning. The second half of your weekend, Sunday, does look a lot better. But what you've got right now, a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning, very heavy rainfall. Several of you still under flash flood warnings, and we're getting hail reports from you guys on the stream. We appreciate that. And any photos you get through the day, make sure to tag WAFF. We just ask that you do so safely. It's more important that you are safe in a sheltered location than you are grabbing a photo or a video for us to share. We do appreciate it, but just do so if you know you are doing it safely.
Yeah, the last thing we want you to do is run outside in a tornado warning to take pictures of a tornado. That's when you should be seeking shelter, and even when there's just strong winds. And keep in mind, too, you have the potential for some damaging winds this afternoon. Even if there's a little bit of a break in the action between the different lines, please be very careful going outside in between those two rounds of storms, just because there could be some limbs that are maybe jarred loose in the tree, and we still have gusty winds that could easily knock that limb out, and then you're in your backyard and you don't know, and all of a sudden, falls to the ground and you're back in the backyard.
Yeah, and even just reiterating the practice, what we preach yesterday before I went to bed at about 5 p.m. Because I knew I had to come in here at midnight, took in the patio furniture. No need to have that around in the backyard. because that could blow around. Just secure those loose outdoor items. Just simple things you could do. Check your safe space right now. Know where that is in your home in case you do have to go there. Sometimes if we do have supercells, that usually means we could give you a little bit more lead time, more of warning with that. We could give you sometimes 30 minutes to 45 minutes, even an hour, depending on the path. So if the supercells do develop this afternoon, that does help us give you guys more advanced notice. That's the only good thing about tracking these supercells. We know the speed, we know more or less what direction they're moving, and we can give you more downstream heads up and warnings. So if you are a person that doesn't have that safe space at home, and you are one that goes to maybe a community storm shelter, if you will, if we give you 30 minutes, that's enough time to get to that community storm shelter safely. We have a full list of those storm shelters on our website, WAFF.com. It's a good idea to maybe call your local emergency management officials, see if the location you go to, that storm shelter, is actually open, because you don't want to show up there and all of a sudden the door's locked and then you've kind of put yourself in a bad situation. We are likely going to be put under at least one more tornado watch. We do have the tornado watch that goes right up to the state line through 1 p.m., but that's for all that activity that you see kind of on the left-hand side of your screen off to the west here into Mississippi, crossing over the Mississippi River. Someone pointing out that, yes, there was a tornado warning. It was north of Corinth. It was actually there in Tennessee. That's been allowed to expire. That never looked terribly impressive on radar and trekking away from us as well. But know where you live on a map, know your town, know your surrounding streets.
Yeah, very important to know where you are on a map, because a lot of times when the warnings get issued, they're issued by county. You need to know where your county is, and you should be able to find yourself on the map. But, you know, Eric was talking about the tornado warnings off to our west right now. There's a line of severe storms back towards Mississippi, and that extends down into Monroe, Louisiana. But no tornado warnings active at this time. It's just severe thunderstorm warnings with wind and heavy rain and probably some large hail. We'll continue to track the same thing here this morning with some hail showing up there on the Barron's graphic for us. All that purple color you see there is indicating some kind of hail. Probably some very heavy rain to go along with that, but probably not that much wind, Eric, right? I don't think we're looking at much in the way of gusts. Now, there's some sustained winds out there that were up to about 25 this morning, yeah. Non-thunderstorm. So it's windy, but not seeing much in the way of thunderstorm winds right now.
Yeah, and heavy rain continues to be a threat through the entire day today. It's going to be the break in activity. I know we were mentioning this is a long duration severe weather event, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to see severe weather for 12 hours nonstop. It's not like we're forecasting a hurricane here. It's going to be the lull in activity that maybe some people let their guard down and say, well, that's it for the day, and then things really start to ramp up quickly into the late morning, afternoon, evening hours, potentially 2 more rounds of storms. People asking, is it really going to get bad? We predict the future to the best of our abilities using the tools that we have. The setup we have, from the surface winds to our temperatures to our dew point, the upper level winds, the instability, the shear in the atmosphere, all indicate we have potential severe storms later today. All forms of severe weather are on the table. That includes large hail, damaging winds, and of course tornadoes. Some may be strong, long track tornadoes, especially if we see those supercells firing up.
Yeah, Jewel says, I thought if we got cooled, it wouldn't get as bad. And a lot of times that is the case, but in this case, we're going to have time to rejuvenate the atmosphere, especially if we pop a little sunshine. There's going to be a little break in the action between rounds of storms, and that might be just enough to trigger an atmosphere that's conducive to more in the way of severe weather as we go into the afternoon and evening. Kelly Simpson letting us know that there's some hail falling in Henniger right now, and that completely verifies with what we're seeing on the radar and picking up our hail track and keeping an eye on that this morning. We've done a lot of hail tracking this morning because we've had numerous reports of hail. Some of the hail was quite large when it moved into Franklin County this morning, and we continue to track that. The rainfall intensity so far has been pretty heavy this morning too.
Yeah, and this is just a good kind of indication of where that more unstable air mass is. and it's here in our western counties with that dew point of 65 in Haleyville. Not a good indication, and this more saturated air will continue to make its way eastward. We've got the south wind just opening up the Gulf, all that moisture coming in, but these dew points already rising after all the rainfall we've seen this morning. That's not showing kind of that rain-cooled air indication. If I could find Jeff's temperatures on here.
I'll get them for you.
All right, leave it to the pro.
I feel bad. So just to let everybody know at home, somehow Eric tolerates me at work because I have the most unorganized show you could ever imagine. Being show is like how our graphics are set up. And so I make it very difficult for him to find things in my show, and I feel horrible. But there's your temperatures for you.
Yeah, they're low to mid 60s right now, with the dew point in the low to mid 60s, at least for areas west of 65. Just to show you the dew point again, westernmost counties becoming more saturated, and that just adds to the instability. These are storms that need the moisture to strengthen, and that's exactly what we're indicating, and the atmosphere is going to have a chance to kind of recoup. Jeff mentioned if we see some sunshine, temperatures mid to upper 70s, dew point in the 60s, that's all it takes. And that is, you know, going to kind of set the table more or less of what we could see as we go into the afternoon rounds of storms. So I'm going to put this over on radar really quick just so I could take a look at this graphic. Jeff, you could drive the radar here while I'm trying to see what this one's doing.
Yeah, I'll check it out here. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a little velocity. I'm going to check and see if we got any winds. I don't think we do. I'm not too worried about the winds. Maybe a few gusts. Up to about 40 maybe. That's about it. It's more about the rainfall and also the threat for some small to medium-sized hail right now. I'll put this in motion. The track for the storms, if you watch the radar, 48 radar, please first off, make sure that if you have downloaded the WAFF 48 app, make sure that when you have your radar, make sure that your radar is set to current. When we did an update on our app, I think it was about 6 months ago, it actually defaulted it to future. So a lot of times people think that they're looking at their radar, but it's actually the future. And they say, well, it doesn't match what you guys have on TV. You can change the setting really easily. It's a one button switch. And you just hit it to current and it'll give you the current radar. But your track is going to be southwest to northeast with these storms. So right now, I'm just going to show you what we got off to the west. So you see the line all the way from Memphis, and it goes probably all the way down to Monroe, Louisiana. And that's where there's actually a tornado warning. But it's this line and it's areas west that we're going to be watching more in development. So we've had one wave of storms move through already. There's still more to come as the system is still off to our west. And there's still going to be waves of rain, and not just waves of rain, but waves of potential severe thunderstorms. And that's what we're going to be tracking this afternoon. Everyone's asking the timeline. You know, I think there could possibly be two separate lines this afternoon and evening. Early afternoon for areas west, 1, 2 o'clock, tracking through Huntsville, Decatur, traffic triangle as I call it, between 2 and 3. And then looks like it fizzles a bit as it makes it to Sand Mountain, but we're not done. There's another one that has to move through during the evening, and that will track off to the east. And that's when we start to get into the potential for severe thunderstorms that could produce long track tornadoes. And that would happen between 6 and 7 for areas west, continuing east 7 to 9 through the Huntsville area, and then eventually 9 to 11 for areas east, and then eventually crossing the Georgia state line. It's those storms that we'll be tracking this afternoon and evening that will likely pack more of a punch than what we've had here this morning. Obviously, we had a tornado watch until 10 a.m. They were allowed to cancel that before 7 a.m. because we didn't have anything happening tornado-wise. We had some damaging winds. We had some large hail and some heavy rain. But the watch was allowed to be canceled early. But look for another tornado watch to be issued for many counties in our area this afternoon. And there could even be a third one for the evening hours. I don't know if they'll chop it up into two separate ones or just make one long tornado watch, but it's very likely that we'll have another one issued for the area. Not quite done yet.
So I just want to show you this. You've probably seen Brad show this a couple times. Just looking at some of the severe weather parameters, that thunderstorm fuel or CAPE, convective available potential energy, anything over 500 would support severe storms. And as we go through the day and we see that kind of that lull in activity, that dry period, and the sunshine, temperatures warming up, look at that CAPE, especially over the western areas, starting to jump up a bit. You've got Tupelo there over 1,500, pushing 2,000, and that starts to spread in. And this is going to be that afternoon round, right around noon, I would say. And then on top of that, we've got future reflectivity hinting at potential supercells here at 12:30. But it's the helicity tracks, white, blue, and green showing up on top of it. And the fact that all of that is lining up is not a good sign. Helicity usually indicates a potential for rotating storms, which would be supercells. And just the insane cluster of white, blue, and green that we have there popping up is not a good sign. Not saying that this is exactly where everything is going to lead and line up here with as we go through the afternoon. It's just giving you an indication that possible storms will be not only severe, but they will be rotating storms too. And that continues to track east. And we've got a lot of CAPEs still, even as that last round starts to move in, still in the 500 to 1,000 range, and that's all it's going to take. Now this is your EHI, and anything over 1, that might be the wrong model run there, but basically the parameters for severe weather are in place. That's simply put. But again, that's probably going to wrap up our weather extra here. Appreciate everyone joining our stream here earlier this morning as well. Get ready for a busy day of potential severe weather. We've got a tornado watch off to our west, all the way from Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, a good portion of Mississippi. That goes until 1 p.m. We've got flood concerns, flood watch in effect, and also flash flood warnings ongoing for Coleman, Morgan, Marshall, parts of Madison, just a sliver of Madison, Jackson, as well as DeKalb County.
Yeah, and that flash flood warning happened because there was these very slow moving storms this morning. And they kept building off of each other off to the back. And what ended up happening was same areas kept getting heavy rainfall, and estimates right now of 2 to 3, possibly 4 inches of rain where you see that flash flood warning. And that flash flood warning you can't see because the graphic's not behind us. But areas where we've had some heavy rainfall have already had that flash flooding.
So thank you so much for your time on this Saturday. Everyone be safe. Go over your sheltering plan. It's going to probably be a pretty busy day tracking storms again. Team coverage through the entire day. Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis will be in with you later, tracking these storms for you, giving you frequent updates. Have your 48 weather app. Check that NOAA weather radio. Charge your devices if you can. We've already seen a few small power outages here. Practice what we preach here. But thank you so much. Stay safe and have a good Saturday.